You ever just be grilling up burgers on Memorial Day, kids laughing, neighbors swapping stories, that easy crackle of summer in the air, when all of a sudden, some HOA psycho storms your dock like she owns the lake and starts screaming at your family? Yeah, that happened to me. "Get out of my lake," she yells at my own kids and at Mrs. Morgan, who's nearly 70 and just wanted to see her grandkid do a cannonball. I looked this woman, Patricia, dead in the eye and said, "This is my private land." She froze for a second, then gave me this creepy smile, like she knew something I didn't, and winked straight at my security camera. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just random neighborhood drama. Patricia was running something a whole lot darker. Now, if you've ever dealt with a HOA type, you know the playbook: clipboard, white tennis shoes, a stare that could curdle milk. But Patricia wasn't just another busybody. She executed her entrance, marching up like she was serving a subpoena. No neighborly hello, just straight to "Excuse me. All unauthorized activities must cease immediately. This is a private community lake." My spatula nearly hit the deck. Kids scattered. Grown adults looked terrified. It was theater, not governance, and she played to the cameras, always hitting the perfect angle, voice pitched just so you'd hear every word on the recording. I could see it. She wasn't here to solve anything. She was here to build a case. She pulls out a folder, whips up an environmental impact report, like she's a federal agent. "According to my assessment, you're in violation of codes, permits required for all activities, yada yada." But the paperwork didn't smell right. Too perfect, too clean, and the sample bottle attached to the report had a collection date 5 days before the report itself. Rookie move. Just then, Walter, my next-door neighbor, retired county clerk, shows up with the original plat map and deed docs. Lays them out right on my picnic table. "This doc is Marcus's by federal deed. The HOA has zero jurisdiction over private shoreline." Patricia barely blinks, but as she storms off to her pristine BMW, she makes sure to nod at every camera, like she wanted to be recorded. That night, the party mood was gone, my guests packed up early, and Mrs. Morgan apologized for causing trouble, which broke my heart because she hadn't done a thing wrong. But instead of being mad, I got curious. See, after 30 years in tech, I've learned when something doesn't make sense, there's a hidden pattern behind it. So I started digging, first online, local forums, neighborhood Facebook, Nextdoor, looking for anything about lake violations. Sure enough, 3 accounts, all created recently, pushing the same lines about HOA authority, lake access, even the same legal jargon. Fake profiles, stock photo headshots, all posting like clockwork every 72 minutes. Shutting down from 2 to 4 a.m. like they were working a night shift. My wife says I'm too trusting, but this was coordinated. Patricia wasn't some bored retiree. She was running a full-blown information war. Next morning, Jake, neighbor, contractor, calls, furious. He's just been hit with an anonymous county complaint about environmental violations on a job that was finished and inspected 3 years ago. The language in the complaint? Word for word from Patricia's report. Then Mrs. Morgan calls, nearly in tears, after someone phones her about community safety liabilities, quizzing her about her insurance, her grandkids' swimming abilities, threatening unsupervised water activity violations. Different numbers, same script, same cold voice with that little edge of condescension that makes you feel dumb for asking questions. Sound familiar? Yeah, Patricia again. Now, you might think it's time to call the cops or a lawyer, but first, I wanted to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. One day, Patricia's BMW was parked outside the community center, windows cracked, folder on the seat. I took a look. Surveillance charts, activity logs, notes on every homeowner. She'd color-coded us. Red for likely to fold under pressure, blue for rule followers, green for financially vulnerable, and there, in yellow, my name, analytical potential, resistance leader. Turns out her boyfriend Ryan, who always seemed to ask just the right questions at barbecues about insurance and liability, was marked as her professional asset, with evidence. Documentation skills. This was an amateur hour. The kicker? Patricia's lifestyle didn't match an HOA salary. Designer clothes, fancy equipment rentals, multiple shell companies billing community improvement services that didn't exist. She was siphoning money out of our HOA reserves, filing fake insurance claims for environmental remediation that never happened, and targeting properties for forced acquisition. The Davises' 8-year-old had been pulled aside at school by someone posing as a safety inspector, mining her for info about what went on at home. This was systematic, predatory, and she was using kids as part of her pressure campaign. I sat in my car with Patricia's evidence folder and felt something shift. I was done being the nice guy. She'd underestimated me. 30 years of debugging taught me every system, no matter how complex, has vulnerabilities. And Patricia's weakness? She thought people wouldn't talk to each other. But I was about to turn her whole surveillance game inside out. Then came the environmental emergency. White vans, men in hazmat suits, yellow tape, like we were suddenly living in Chernobyl. Bullhorns announced severe contamination. Everyone told to evacuate the lake. But their testing gear was party rental props. The water samples came from a garden spigot, and their digital meters showed the same fake numbers. Over and over. And Patricia? She watched the panic unfold from her deck, binoculars in hand, scribbling notes. She wasn't solving a problem. She was testing which families would panic, who'd resist, who'd look to others for leadership. That's when Walter stepped up again, this time with water quality records and a demand for EPA certification. The hazmat crew bolted faster than you can say. Lawsuit. Later, I caught audio from Patricia's deck. Lake access dependency mapped. Phase 1 complete. Ready to initiate property acquisition Phase 2. It was all a psychological test to see how far she could push us before we'd snap. Within days, the anonymous complaints ramped up. Code enforcement, EPA, even police. Every agency you can think of bombarded with reports using the same language as Patricia's fake documents. If I hadn't been recording everything, if Walter hadn't kept records, if I hadn't compared notes with neighbors, Patricia might have succeeded in scaring us into selling. But here's the twist. All it took was one accidental discovery. A kid finding a copy of Mrs. Morgan's threatening letter in another family's garage sale box to show we'd all been targeted by the same fake law firm, each threat tailored to our specific vulnerabilities. When the whole community gathered and laid our letters side by side, Patricia's playbook came into focus: intimidate, isolate, acquire. But united, we weren't just victims. We became evidence gatherers. Jake dug through the contractor payments and exposed $80,000 in fake invoices, all tied back to Patricia's shell companies. Walter traced equipment rentals to party supply stores, not environmental labs. And Ryan? Turns out he was an undercover state insurance fraud investigator, collecting evidence for a multi-state case. The boyfriend gig was his cover. Patricia tried a last-ditch effort at the HOA emergency meeting, reading off our secrets to shame us back into silence. But instead of fracturing, the community rallied, people owning their vulnerabilities, supporting each other, and shutting down her tactics in real time. By then, law enforcement was in the room, watching Patricia unravel. Her threats of lawsuits and regulatory investigations rang hollow when faced with evidence from 3 states, hundreds of pages of forensic accounting, and a neighborhood that refused to break. She lost everything: her position, her property, her freedom. Our bylaws changed, audits became standard, term limits imposed. The lake was free. Again, our families closer than ever, and our property values shot up, not down, because buyers knew they were joining a neighborhood that had proven itself impossible to bully. Looking back, I wonder how many other communities fall for this kind of scam without ever realizing they're not alone. So tell me, would you have questioned the hazmat suits or just followed the crowd? Ever discover you and your neighbors were all being targeted by the same manipulator? Drop your story below, and don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next.